Hello and welcome in a new episode preparing you for the PMP exam. I'm your instructor Nader Omran. In this episode we will talk about develop project charter. At the end of this episode you will be able to explain why project charter is a necessary document, discovering stakeholders which may contribute to project charter creation, lists what we need to create the project charter, and how to create a project charter for your project. Back to the 47 project management processes overview. The first process in the initiating group, also the first process in the integration management knowledge area, is the process of developing the project charter. Let's see what is happening inside this process. Develop project charter. In this process we are creating a document that includes information about initial requirements and get it signed in form of a formal authorization to start a project or a phase. And as we learned in a previous episode, in multi-phase projects, this process is used to validate or refine the decision made during the previous iteration of this process. In fact, the project charter is the first formal contract between seller and buyer. We can call it also between the performing entity and the requesting entity, or between the organization and the customer. A formal contract is typically the preferred way to establish an agreement. And keep in mind, organization should assign the project manager at the initiating phase as early as possible, and not later than the start of the planning phase. It is really very useful if the project manager is involved in developing the project charter, because understanding the initial requirements at the start allows an efficient resource allocation. A project exists with the existence of authorized and approved project charter. And the reason of doing projects is business need or external influences. The project charter helps us to discover profitability of the project in form of business case and describe the situation before and after the project. Project charter also helps to align the project to the strategic goals of the organization and provides the project manager with the authority to plan and execute the project.
But who signs and authorizes a project?
Well, it should be someone external to the project, such as a sponsor or a project management office, if it exists in your organization, or portfolio steering committee. They have the responsibility of getting funding and the resources for the project. Also, they are responsible for developing the project charter. But in many cases, they delegate it to the project manager.
In short sentence, the initiator should sign the project charter.
Correct. But don't forget, a project charter is not considered to be a contract, because there is no money promised or exchanged in its creation. As I mentioned before, in each process you need some inputs to deploy the tools and techniques to get the output. In this case, the project charter. The first input needed to develop the project charter is the project statement of work. The statement of work is a document that includes the description of the project deliverables or end result. For organizational intern projects, the project initiator will provide the statement of work in form of business needs and initial requirements. But for external projects, the statement of work can be received from the customer as part of a contract in form of a request for proposal, request for information, or a request for bid.
Which information should be included in the project statement of work?
The statement of work includes information about business need based on market demand, technological advance, legal requirement, or governmental regulation. And keep in mind, the business case includes the business need and the cost-benefit analysis. Second, product scope description. This is a description of the characteristics of a project deliverables and a description of the relation between the project deliverables and the business need. For example, describes the situation before and after the project. The project statement of work includes also the strategic plan. It includes the organization's strategic goals, which may contain a high-level mission statement. And keep in mind that project should be aligned with the strategic plan to ensure that the project most likely get an approval or authorization. The second document we will need to proceed with the developing the project charter is the business case. The business case provides the necessary information used to evaluate the project and to find whether or not the project is worth the investment or effort. It includes the business need and the cost-benefit analysis to promote the project. Such analysis is done by business analysts using the stakeholder inputs. And in case of external projects, the customer may write the business case.
When should I create a business case?
The business case is created when a project should cover one of the following. Market demand. For example, a car company authorizing a project to build more fuel-efficient cars in response to gasoline shortages. Organizational need. For example, a training company authorizing a project to create a new course to increase its revenue. Customer request. For example, an electric utility authorizing a project to build a new substation to serve a new industrial park. Technological advance. For example, electronics firm authorizing a new project to develop a faster, cheaper, and smaller laptop after advances in computer memory and electronics technology. Legal requirements. For example, a paint manufacturer authorizing a project to establish guidelines for handling toxic materials. Ecological impacts. For example, a company undertakes a project to lessen its environmental impacts. Social need. For example, a non-governmental organization in a developing country authorizing a project to provide potable water systems or latrines, etc. In case of multi-phase projects, the business case may be periodically reviewed to ensure that the project is on track. For the sponsoring organization, a periodic review of the business case helps to confirm that the project is still needed. Agreements. It's all kind of intentions to start a project. For instance, agreements may take the form of contracts, memorandums of understanding (MOU), service level agreement (SLA), letter of agreements, letter of intent, verbal agreements, email, or other written agreements. But most of the time a contract is used when a project is being performed for an external customer. Enterprise environmental factors.
Why we need the enterprise environmental factors.
The enterprise environmental factors include information such as governmental or industry standards or regulations, for example, code of conduct, quality standards, or worker protection standards. Organization culture and infrastructure. Marketplace conditions. Organizational process assets.
Why we need the organizational process assets.
Because the organizational process assets include information such as organizational standard processes, policies, and standardized process definitions, templates such as project charter templates, and historical information and lessons learned. For example, previous projects, records, documents, project closure information, information about the result of previous project selection decisions, performance information and risk management activities. That was the 5 inputs. Now let's see which tools and technique we can use in this process.
What are the tools and techniques we need in this process?
After getting all needed inputs to this process, you will need to evaluate and assess the inputs. You will most likely need the help from the experienced person or entity, such as other units within the organization. You need the help from the technical department to collect the description of the product, service, or result. In one word, you can say deliverables. Consultants. You may also hire a consultant if the expertise is not available in your organization. Stakeholders, including customer or sponsor. You may need to ask the customer or sponsor when you need help by decisions. Professional and technical associations. You may get opinion from other technical organizations which are more specialized in the industry needed for your project. Industry groups. You may also start researching the industry groups or communities to be updated with the last advances in the industry. Subject matter experts. A subject matter expert is an individual who understands an area or topic and well enough to answer questions for the same matter of expertise. Project Management Office (PMO). Also, you may need the help from the Project Management Office if you have questions to management details. The second technique in developing the project charter is facilitation techniques, such as brainstorming, conflict resolution, problem solving, and meeting management. Those are examples of facilitation techniques that guide the development of the project charter. The output of the process of developing the project charter is,
Of course, it will be the project charter.
as we said before, the project charter is a document which includes the business needs and the initial vision of the deliverables. In this vision, you should collect the information about the following. Project purpose, measurable project objectives and related success criteria, high-level requirement, high-level scope and mean of project description, as well as project risks. Some criteria about what leads the project to success and who are the key stakeholders which may have a great influence on the project and who should sign the project charter. Include also the name and responsibility of the assigned project manager, with the name of the sponsor or initiator.
And what after developing the project charter?
Back to our 47 processes, we will see that the project charter will be an input to some other processes as we learned before. That the project management processes integrates with each other, and the output from a process may be an input to another. Here we can see we used the 5 inputs, which was the project statement of work, business case and agreements from the requesting entity, and the organization process assets with the enterprise environmental factors from the performing entity. Then, performing the tools and technique to this process, which was expert judgment and facilitation techniques. And at the end, we came out with the project charter as an output, which will be needed as an input to the identify stakeholder process. Because in the project charter we will find the name and responsibility of the key stakeholders. The project charter is also an input to the developed project management plan process, because it includes all information needed for the management plan and it becomes a document in the project management plan. The project charter becomes also an input to the process of collecting requirements because it includes the high-level requirements. And also it is an input to the define scope process because the project charter includes the product description. And also it is an input to the schedule management plan because the project charter includes the initial start date and milestone. And also it is an input to the plan cost management because the project charter includes initial costs and initial budget. And also it is an input to the plan risk management because the project charter includes the initial risks, constraints and assumptions. And also it is an input to the plan scope management because the project charter includes the initial scope in mean of the project and product descriptions. We will always come back to this view after each process to see how the process interact and integrate with each other. Also to fix this table in your mind because you will need it in the exam day. We arrived to the end of this episode. Now we should be able to explain why project charter is a necessary document, discovering stakeholders which may contribute to project charter creation, lists what we need to create the project charter, and how to create a project charter for your project. I hope it was informative for you and thank you for watching.